Welcome to SchezzWho. You're watching Hampton Road's top spot for politics. Tonight's episode, we'll go into Virginia Beach's full ballot, and we'll debate each race on the merits. To do so, I'm bringing in Melissa Lukeson and Jimmy Frost, two respective grassroots organizers within the Democrat and Republican parties, each respectable on their aggression and mindfulness therein. Should be most entertaining. Now, of course, this show is brought to you by rather fantastic individuals. And let me get them up here. First, I want to start off with Miss Andrea Dixon, my wife, who founded this very channel, SchezzWho. Thankful to her, love her, proud of her, and all the things that she's currently doing with the state of Virginia now, with workforce development and the Department of Energy. So again, thanks, love you, proud of you. My good friend, Miss Ellen, at Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue Express. She has two locations, of course, right here in Portsmouth, where I live, in Portsmouth Boulevard, but there's also across from Regent University in Virginia Beach. So all those Virginia Beach folks watching right now, and I see about 10 right now on the YouTube feed, so that's good. Right across from Regent University shops next to the Waffle House and the YMCA is Miss Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue Express. So hit that up for some great food. Also want to say hey to Mr. Seiko Varner, who got me into podcasting about 4 years ago. His business, Positive Vibes Incorporated, does entertainment and consulting services. He's a great, excellent DJ. He does credit fixes. He does tax resolutions, lends private money, and does debt consolidation. Hit him up if you need any of those services at 757-932-0177. I also want to shout out Mr. Farley Perkins, insurance broker, agency owner for Brightway Insurance, the Farley Perkins Agency, Farley or Perkins at Brightway.com, and 757-271-6655. And lastly, ELG Sweet Boutique, which is an ice cream and shake shop right here in Portsmouth, 340 High Street, Portsmouth, Virginia. Some great sweet treats down there. All right. Tonight's show is going to battle it out over the full ballot of Virginia Beach. And I want to welcome on Jimmy Frost, a local Republican operative with over 16 years help moving Republican candidates and Republican issues. He has run for the Virginia Beach Republican Chairmanship before and definitely knows his way around the beach city. So does Melissa Lukeson, owner of the Collective Tattoo and Piercing on North Mall Drive in Virginia Beach, a grassroots organizer herself with stints helping the Virginia Beach Democratic Committee straight up and, of course, assorted local candidates as well. What sets them apart, in my eyes, is from their peers, is that they have a bit more in touch with the non-establishment spirit. And they're diehards to boot. So let's bring them both on right now. Miss Melissa, Mr. Jimmy, how are you guys doing this great Wednesday night?
Doing just fine, Conrad.
I'm glad and thankful that you guys are not only on to discuss this, and you guys have shared it a bit. That's why I'm getting so many views right now. I've got another comment up, but I got Mr. John Doucette's latest Print to Send Independent, and it has the Virginia Beach ballot overview. So let us begin from the bottom going up. Let's start talking about Virginia Beach School Board District 7 between Noah Moreland and Matthew Cummings. Why should we vote either one of them? And you guys can go whatever one first. Melissa first, Jimmy first. Just how you guys?
Ladies first.
I mean, if you want to just look at experience, I don't know. There's a lot of feedback somewhere. I'm not sure where that's coming from. Can y'all hear that?
I muted myself just to make sure it might help out. I'll be.
So Matt Cummings he has worked in education. He has had a long-time career in working in higher education and workforce development. He taught English as second language in Shanghai, China for 3 years as example. And so I think that Matt having some verifiable, measurable results that he can talk about as a school board candidate really kind of trumps, for lack of a better word, a 27-year-old utilities, like a city. I think you might work for the city's young man, 27 years old, very, very limited life experience at this point, and certainly not an education. He only came out because he's one of those evangelical Christians, and he started speaking at school board meetings about banning books. And so if District 7 voters would like someone who would like to bring God and the Bible into the classroom and would like to prohibit what students have access to read, then yes, District 7 should vote for Noah Moreland. But if you would like intellectual freedom, if you would like your children to have intellectual freedom, then you should vote for Matt Cummings.
What say you on Mr. Noah there, Mr. Jimmy?
Well, I got to tell you, it's great that somebody might have been an educator, but I take a more practical view of things, Conrad. I spent years in this city as a paramedic back in the 80s. And I can tell you that if you go into a emergency room with a patient who's been in a car accident, the last thing you'd want is a team of doctors standing there, and they're all podiatrists. You want different specialties, like an orthopedic surgeon, like a thoracic surgeon, anesthesiologist, the whole shooting match. And this is where I think the school boards kind of run afoul. A lot of people run for office and go, well, I'm a teacher. I'm qualified to be on the school board. Not really, not all the time. And I'll tell you why. Because you need a wide variety of skill sets and different points of view to come to a consensus. And Melissa, I'm sorry that you think being a Christian with Christian values is a pejorative. I don't think it is. I do believe that.
Did I say that? I didn't say that. I didn't say it was a pejorative.
Like it's a bad thing.
It is a bad thing to bring Christianity into the school, into the classroom. That is absolutely a bad thing. That's not respecting others and their religious freedom, which is covered by the First Amendment.
What is it about Christian values that offends you so much? Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. What's wrong with that?
It is not Christian values that offend me, Jimmy. It is Christian values being shoved down people's throats and trying to bring that into the classroom when you have Jewish students, you have Buddhist students, you have Muslim students, you have atheist students.
And a school board member does not typically go in and teach and ram these things down somebody's throat. So I think you're being a little bit alarmist.
Fair. Hey, I really would like you to remember that if you bring up another hot topic within the schools, I would like you to remember that you just said that teachers aren't ramming that down anybody's throat.
No, I said school board members aren't ramming things down their throat. They don't typically go in class.
School board members.
Conrad, you started this, buddy.
Yes, I did. I did it on purpose.
Jimmy, you got that MAGA Wi-Fi, man. I don't know if it's your phone or it's your bad Wi-Fi, but like you are sounding horrible on your end.
It's
just a smidge scratchy, but I can still hear you.
Well, let me try this over here. But again, I think that we need a diversity of skill sets on the school board. I really do. And I don't think that someone being somebody who's religious, then okay, well, what if somebody is a staunch practicing Jewish person, or if somebody's practicing Muslim? Does that disqualify them in your eyes? It seems that it would.
Religion should not be brought into the classroom unless it is being taught in a historical context.
And so
separation of church and state. I mean,
are you basically saying, Melissa, that because someone is a Christian and has Christian values, then that immediately disqualifies them from public service?
Absolutely not. When did I say that?
Well, apparently you just did, because you're basically accusing this candidate that he is going to go ram his religion down somebody's throat. And that's not
have you listened to any of his school board speeches?
I'm sorry, I typically work in the evening, but I've listened to some of yours, and they're not very flattering.
So if you haven't listened to any of his school board speeches, then it sounds like you are uninformed about what Noah has been talking about when he comes to do his speeches. So maybe go back and watch those, and then we can talk about Noah Moreland.
But again, I don't think that we need an entire school board of professional educators. I mean,
I actually would agree with you, Jimmy. I don't think that we need an entire board. I do think we need some diversity in what people's professional experiences are. But
as long as they're not Christians.
stop putting words in my mouth. I never said that.
Remember, let's spread this out among all the
Yes.
school board candidates.
Yes.
We wish
I mean,
to. I want to shout out Mr. Brian Curran. Good to see him watching as well.
I think this is this is kind of, you could apply this to essentially this conversation about Noah Moreland.
Mhm.
You can apply what we're talking about to virtually every one of the Republican endorsed candidates for school board.
Well, let's see for the next one. How about Melinda Rogers and Vincent Smith in District 5?
Go ahead, Jimmy.
I've known Vincent Smith since about 2020. He's a real straight shooter, and I happen to like the man very much. He's an engineer with the Department of Public Utilities, I believe it is. And this guy is just really, 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 really what they call in Boston, wicked smart. Like I said, I've had a friendship with him since 2020. And I think that he's got a more practical viewpoint on things like trade education. We're not teaching kids trades like we used to. And unfortunately, not all children are going to go to college. And I think that we have been not serving our kids well by not emphasizing trades like building trades or electricians or anything like that. Things society needs, because air conditioners and electrical systems are going to break. We need people to fix them. And the trades are screaming for people. They're not coming out of the public schools anymore.
Well, Jimmy and I would agree on that point. We don't agree on the candidate, but we agree on the point of trades. I 100% agree that we need some better focus on the trade industry. I don't, for me, Vincent Smith is an absolute no. He wants to arm teachers. He wants to, he's the Virginia Citizen Defense League. I guess he's the head. I don't know if he founded it or if I know he's very high up in authority within that and was a big organizer for Virginia Beach to be a Second Amendment sanctuary city or something like that. And I just absolutely do not support any policies that he has. I think he's rigid. And I don't think he connects with voters. I've witnessed the way he speaks and interacts with voters. I don't think he connects with voters, but I guess we'll see. And I'm a huge supporter of Melinda Rogers, 10-year educator. Prior to that, she was paralegal. She works for the Department of Education. And one of her big focuses is getting into the budget and seeing where some allocations can be made, changed within the school budget. And she wants to really work with council and trying to make sure that our schools are fully funded. That's very important to her. So my thing is Melinda Rogers. My goal is to get her elected.
Define fully funded.
I want programs fully funded. I want the JLARC study. Honestly, at a statewide level.
Define to fund the police.
Huh?
I would ask him to define to fund the police, but that's another thing.
Right. But fully funding the schools is making sure that we have the actual funds that we need to have successful schools in the city. And there's a lot of things that can be done. And there's probably some things that some Republicans would agree with me on that I think need to be done in Virginia schools. But if you read the JLARC study, you know that the entire state of Virginia would need $1.5 billion to actually catch our schools, our 131 school districts up in the entire state to where they should be, because it has been consistently defunded over the years by Republicans.
I would simply say that with a municipal budget of, I think, $2.3 billion, and if I'm not mistaken, the public schools get pretty much half of that. Some of their funding does come from the state. How much more does the city of Virginia Beach need? Right now, we currently have, I think, 44 assistant administrators, all of them making over six figures. I would go across the street to the courthouse and get a search warrant for common sense to serve on the school system, but I don't think they'd have probable cause to find any. 44 administrators, you got to agree that is way too many administrators, especially for a public school system that has seen 100%. A decline over the past 5 years.
You and I will not disagree.
then that's good. That's a start. We're going to get you on my side yet.
Not a chance. Never. I'm sorry. No, not
I think
ever.
Kelsey Robert said the same thing too.
No, never gonna
How
happen.
about we go into District 4, which is a special election with current incumbents Shannon Kendrick, and then we have Anissa Bowden and Alveda Green. How about those candidates?
Who would like
I've
to
known
go first?
Shannon Kendrick for, oh my God, since I think 2008, 2009. She's a great gal. And I will admit that I'm not very familiar with the policies that she puts forth. But knowing her character as I do, I'm confident that she's the right person for the job. And again, I can't speak to the other candidates because, in all candor, I haven't followed them. I didn't even think anybody else was running in that race.
So I do feel pretty comfortable speaking on this. Well, first I'll start with Shannon Kendrick. I'm sure she's a nice lady. Okay, I don't have any sort of any opinions about her other than her experience here is going to be just political. She is a political operative. She worked for Congressman Rigel for, I think, a decade. And I strongly feel like this appointment and her running this race is really just something for her to boop on her little political resume for her aspirations for future office. I don't think that Shannon is interested in at all in actually performing as a school board candidate. And like I said, I just think this is just something on a resume. Dr. Green. So Dr. Green was an employee of VBCPS. I have had some of my own concerns with Dr. Green in the past, running for this seat. For me, that's because of the relationship that if you know me, you know I am not a fan of the superintendent, Dr. Robertson. And anyone that I feel was living in administration with him at any time calls into question leadership and their ability to be a leader. Over the time that she's been campaigning, I've gotten to know her. I've actually talked to her, expressed some concerns of mine to her. And she was very forthright and honest and transparent about that. She's very well known in her district. She's very well respected. She does have a doctorate in education. And Bowden, also 30-year teacher from Chesapeake. She has a master's degree. She lost the primary in the Democratic primary to Dr. Green in the district. And she had said she would drop out from the race. And she did not. So that is District 4. That's how I feel about District 4 right now.
Any thoughts on Anissa?
Me?
Regardless.
I mean, I think if Anissa gets elected, I think Anissa would be she would be great on the school board. Initially, I was supporting Anissa, and then when she lost the Democratic primary, I was still supporting Anissa, but then she said she was going to withdraw as to not split that ticket, and then she didn't, and so I withdrew my support for her. So.
All right. So let's move on to District 3, which had 2 people on it. Now it's just Mark style. What about all that?
I have no opinion on it. There's no race there.
Hold on. Say that again.
The District 3 race, which has Mark, if I'm saying this right, Bowen Steele.
Bowen Steele.
It had Sutton in it, but Sutton he dropped out because of signature controversy.
Mm-hmm. It is what it is. Mark. I am not a fan of Mark's policies and his what he's going to be bringing to the table. But we don't really have a choice. He gets one vote, he wins. So I don't think that's democracy. But
all right. How about District 1, where we have Jennifer Franklin versus Rose Dwyer?
Jimmy, why don't you go first?
Jennifer Franklin's an interesting cat. She claims to be a Republican, but her voting record says quite the opposite. In fact, there was an attempt made to eject her from the Republican Party because she voted with the Democrats, I think over 85% of the time. That vote, I think, if I'm not mistaken, half of the members of the party voted to eject her from the party, but they didn't reach the 2/3 majority required under our bylaws. So I have questions about her Republican bona fides. I do know Rose Dwyer. She's a very nice lady. She's a grandmother, which I think might play important in that district, since I think over 60% of the people in that district are nearing retirement age. But again, she's on our ticket, so I don't even live in her district, so I don't get to vote. But I think she'll do as fine as any other candidate.
So Rose Dwyer, is an interesting. I mean, she's a MAGA candidate, so we're talking about the same things that we're talking about with Noah Moreland, and with Rose, we had to do some real big digging. It was really difficult to find. She was appointed to a school board in Southampton County. Southampton County schools, their rating is a C. So I don't know if she had a positive impact or not many years ago when she was sitting on that school board for, I think it was maybe just 2 years or something. Other than that, it's very difficult, I think, to find a lot of information about her as a candidate, and she just has the same tired talking points as most candidates. Jennifer Franklin, who is the incumbent, Jennifer Franklin, I've been very honest with how I feel about Jennifer Franklin. It's so funny how I think it's ludicrous that she still wants to be a part of a political party that tried to out her and the way they treat her and all that. But that's her own punishment. You know what I mean? Just that's her choice. But she's certainly, I've talked to Jennifer Franklin. She is certainly not a Democrat. She is certainly a Republican with her core values and beliefs. But she's the best candidate because I think she is the most reasonable. You can talk to her. She's willing to talk. She always answers emails, even when the emails are not very nice. At least that's been my experience, because I have sent her not nice emails. And she's always been willing to have a conversation with me. And that's what I would like. I would just like to have candidates that are and electeds that would just be willing to have a conversation.
All right. How about we move on to the city council race? And I'll start with District 8 special election, which has Phil Hines, Stacey Cummings, Cody Connor, Leland Jones. How about that one?
Well, we know that I'm working with Cody, and I've known Cody for quite a while. And I think this race is going to be really interesting because you have 3 Republicans and 1 Democrat, and a very interesting. You got Stacey Cummings, who's the blowhard Republican guy that's literally trying to buy his seat for District 8. Then you have Phil Hines, who is the anointed by Chris Taylor, who, if I weren't supporting Cody, I would be behind Phil, because, even though we don't really match, we match more than we don't, I think, more than 6. Yeah, Jimmy, they're asking for you to mute when you're not speaking because the feedback. Sorry. Okay, cool. So you have Phil running, who, Phil is very focused on the bike path. He's very focused on some residential zoning and keeping neighborhoods, zoned without having multiple units coming in or apartment buildings coming in and mixed use, things like that. And he kind of wants to build up that corridor along the boulevard. And I think that his focus is very much city focused, and I like that. And then you have Leland Jones, who I just honestly, I don't know a lot about him. It's like leaders who listen, I think is his slogan. He seems young. I overheard him talking to voters out at early voting, and he was being a bit combative. And I think that, listen, I'm an activist. I can be combative. And every Republican watching this knows how combative I am. But I'm not a candidate. And I think that when you're a candidate, there's a certain decorum and way you hold yourself when you're out talking to voters. And so I found that to be a little bit immature. And I don't think that Leland's maturity is there. And that's just from listening. I've been to a couple city council forums where he spoke. So you got like the blowhard trying to buy a seat. You got Phil, who's like a moderate Republican, who's just kind of trying to focus on the non-political political stuff. And then you've got Leland, who is just splitting the vote even more for the Republicans, which is almost ensuring that Cody Connor is going to get elected. But we'll see. What do you think, Jimmy?
I think you're wrong about Stacey Cummings. And full disclosure, I do work for his campaign. I think he's going to crush his opponents. And I got to tell you something. When we were talking back in, I think it was February or March, he was discussing things like the cost of development for any kind of housing project, permits and code and all this stuff, and how government could really act to help people lower the cost of housing, which is a critical issue at this time. And what do you know? Today there was a story in the Virginian Pilot about that very thing. Helen Dragas commented on that. It was adding thousands to the cost of housing. So I think that there's a lot more to Stacey Cummings than just being a blowhard, as you like to say. He was a founding member of the Priority Auto Group, and this guy is really, really smart. Now,
you're not using a car salesman as like you're like, come on now, Jimmy.
He's not a car salesman. I asked him about that. In fact, I asked him, I said, so when did you start liking cars? Because you would figure that anybody in car dealership would be a car nut. And Stacey looked at me and said, a car is just a widget. So he's looking at things at a higher level than most people do, I believe.
No, he's looking at things from a money perspective, Jimmy.
Okay, well, can I finish my statement? Because I didn't interrupt you.
Go ahead.
That would be very nice. But again, I think Phil Hines is a great guy. I think he's a little less experienced than I'd like him to be. And I don't know that the money is there for the light rail line or the train line to become a walking path. I think that would be a nice thing to have. But I think there's so many other things that our city needs right now. Like we spoke about earlier, Kempsville doesn't have a rec center. Then we have still the flooding issues, which they're working on, but the money is just not there because the cost of construction has gone up so much. But again, I really think that we do have too many candidates in that race, but I do feel that Stacey's going to come out very well.
All right, how about District 7, which is going to be Cash, Jackson, Green, and Mabinty Scott. What about District 7?
Well, the only exposure I had to Cash Green's opponent was her performance at the Tea Party Forum, and I got the impression that she was not as comfortable speaking in front of a crowd as you might want an elected official. I can't speak for her governing experience, but she just didn't seem to have a very good command of the facts as perhaps she could have.
I don't feel that's an unfair assessment of Ms. Scott. I like her a lot. I like obviously her policies. She is, in favor of collective bargaining. She has been the I don't know if they call them legislative assistants with the city council, but she's worked with Sabrina Wooten for several years, so she already kind of has a familiarity with behind the scenes, what it takes to be a council person. I on the opposing side, as far as Cash Green is concerned, I actually very much like Cash Green. I even though he's a Republican, but I like him. I have concerns about his ability to, based on he is in the car business, and I am worried about his ability to fulfill the obligations. I know what it takes to work in not just sales, but like car sales, and the hours that it demands. And so there's some concern there that he's not going to be able to fulfill the obligations without practically killing himself, to be on council. But I think that he will listen, and he will be fair. I have an established relationship with him. I've gone and had coffee with him. And so we have an understanding with one another. He knows that I'll reach out if he votes on something that I am not in favor of, and we'll have a discussion about it.
All right. How about on the District 5, which is Rosemary Wilson, the incumbent, versus LG Shaw III? I'll let Jimmy go first because we both know Rosemary.
Yeah. Again, full disclosure, I'm working for that candidate too. I will tell you that Rosemary and I got off to a very rough start. I don't think she liked me very much, and I wasn't a big fan. But over the years, we've cultivated a very good relationship. And when there was ever a problem with city government or something that my neighborhood needed, Rosemary was there. And Melissa, this is right down the street from you. This vacant lot that we have at the corner of Westminster and Wolfsnare, that was going to be developed by the McCluskey Corporation for, I think, 5 houses and 10 townhouses. They were also going to put a duplex in my neighborhood in a triangle, which where the kids play. And then there was another one 2 streets over that they were going to put another duplex on, which would basically vaporize any open space that my neighborhood kids had to play on. Rosemary Wilson got me a sit-down meeting with Cheryl McCluskey, and we discussed options. And I was overjoyed to think that, not only did we get the 2 triangles, which was what I was hoping for, the city was able to buy this corner lot and prevent it from being developed. And hopefully one day in the future, it'll be a public park. Rosemary has always been an activist for open spaces. She's gone out to neighborhoods to get them services that they need, like broken sidewalks repaired, recreational facilities. She was fundamental in saving Rudy Loop for development. And I think she's done an excellent job as vice mayor. And if I lived in District 5, I would vote for her. I don't know Mr. Shaw. I don't know anything about him. I've only heard him speak once. So I can't form an opinion about him, but I'm going to stick with Rosemary.
Well, I think Rosemary's time has come to an end. She's been on council for 24 years, I believe it is. Rosemary definitely is not my number one fan. She didn't like my welfare for the wealthy comment. I know that kind of bothered her a little bit. But really, honestly, she's been sitting up there for 24 years. She's pro-development. I do understand that her stance, she says she's saving, I don't hate cars, Brian. Sorry, comments, Brian Kerwin chirping in the comments. But Rosemary, it's just her time. So one of the things that Jimmy's talking about, which is right up the street from me as well, because Jimmy and I live very close to one another, is that new Virginia Beach Park. And Jimmy, I appreciate your efforts for working on that to try to get that done during Linwood Branch's campaign, if you recall, for District 6. I think that was when this whole thing kind of really started coming about. My issue with the city doing that is that McCleskey was supposed to have developed that parcel in 1978. It is documented, and I sent the documents to the actual District 6 councilperson, Worth Remick, when this whole thing was going on, about the commitment from the McCleskeys as a developer. They were going to do a dog park, a park for the play kids, an actual nature trail around the community, and all of these things that they were supposed to do. And that included that parcel of land. Instead, they held on to it. And then fast forward 40 years, and they wanted to develop it because no one in the city of Virginia Beach holds these developers accountable. They get these, they make these developers, they'll make proffers, they'll do all these things, but where's the check mark to say that they've fulfilled the things that they told the community, the people who bought their townhomes. I'm assuming, Jimmy, that you are a homeowner over there, that you own your home in the Washington Square area, like, because I know that that's kind of where we both live off Wolfsnare. And it would bother me that those things that the city, we as taxpayers, already paid, and now we're paying again, right? We're paying for a park for something that they should have done for that community in 1978. So using that example with like Rosemary fighting for that, I mean, she was against the Citizen Review Board. She was against the district system. I mean, Rosemary, everything that the city is really has been operating for a very long time with people like Rosemary, behind the scenes working with development, and not really moving the city of Virginia Beach forward. And I just think it's time to go. I think it's her time. LG, I don't know LG very much, much like Jimmy. I think that he's a Republican cosplaying as a Democrat, to be honest. But and I've told him that right onto his face. So I'm not saying anything on this podcast I haven't said to him. But we'll see how it goes.
Well, District 3, which includes incumbent Michael Berlucci, I believe Christina Felder, and Cleon Jones.
Now, there's one campaign I'm not working on. I've known Michael quite a few years, and I got to tell you, I have not seen much of anything from these other candidates. I know they're running, but I just don't. You don't hear from them. I haven't seen them in any forums. Maybe I'm missing some of them, but I know that Cleon Jones is pro-union and Michael Berlucci is not. I don't know what Mr. Jones stands for. I know he's a firefighter, which is a laudable profession, obviously, and I don't know that much about him.
So Cleon Jones, I think almost 30-year firefighter. Essentially what happened was the firefighters union and the teachers, essentially labor, has been organizing for collective bargaining for 2 years at least. And they've been really getting screwed around by the council. And they voted against collective bargaining. And essentially what we're seeing with some of the candidates that are coming up is that backlash of trying to unseat some of the council people that voted against collective bargaining. There's a lot of statistics out there and polling going on about labor support in each of the districts that are running. And that polling is showing up that the community is more than 60%, in some districts more than others, more than 60% in favor of labor. And so Cleon is a result of that recruiting for a candidate that would run against Michael Berlucci and supporting labor. And so as a firefighter and having dealt with the collective bargaining negotiations, trying to get that supported in the city and get city council to support that, that's what he's getting. I am, I've talked to Michael Berlucci on many occasions. I do not support Michael Berlucci as a council person. I think that he can be hypocritical. I've seen that in the past. He talks a lot about transparency, but there's been a lot of instances where, he's not been transparent, and he's been called on that publicly for that. So, and then Christina Felder is an enigma to me. Her campaign, whoever's running her campaign, I thought that it was a joke. Honestly, I thought her campaign was a joke. I as a business owner, I live in District 6. My business is in District 3. I reached out to her campaign early on, and asked, I legitimately just wanted to inquire about her positions because she was running against Michael Berlucci. And so I inquired as a business owner, and she basically told me, your business doesn't vote and your voice doesn't matter, and I don't need to answer any questions. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. And that was that. So.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I have a saying that if you're going to shoot yourself in the foot, don't use a bazooka. And it sounds to me like that's what she did.
Legitimately, yes. I was so shocked by that response, to be honest. I was like, and I will tell y'all this. What was one of the reasons why I wanted to reach out to her when she first launched her campaign was because she had filled out an application to join the Democratic Party. And we got a call the night before she was supposed to be voted in. And she said, I changed my mind. I don't want to be voted in. I'm going with the Republican Party. And that was just the most bizarre. Like, what do you mean? Like, you're running for office and you're just deciding? Yeah, she has shared a lot of Trump stuff on her pages, but like, I don't know what to do with that.
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't even think it was like a real person, and until a couple weeks into it, I guess. So, yeah, I got that sentiment too. I really wish I could hear more from Cleon over the past few weeks, just to hear more about him. I think being a firefighter for over 28 years in Virginia Beach is great. It's probably why he's for collective bargaining. I would have liked to have met him. I unfortunately haven't. So, on to District 1, where people who I have met, like Ryan Gilliam and Chief Hutch. How about those two?
Well, again, full disclosure, I helped Ryan build his website, do his logo, and advised him early on. Ryan's issue is collective bargaining. He wants to stop it. And I think that that's important because right now the city just can't afford collective bargaining. When you look at what happened during the port strike, and you had that yahoo from the union talking about how he's going to break the economy and cause shortages and everything, that's not the smartest way to get people on your side. Translate that to the collective bargaining debate here in Virginia Beach. Yes, it is true that municipal employees do not have the right to strike yet. But we also saw many years ago that we thought we'd never get collective bargaining with municipal governments in Virginia, and then we did. The winds of change. I shudder to think what would happen if the school teachers in Virginia Beach, as they have in other cities, go out on strike. How many parents is that going to disrupt their schedule and disrupt their lives? So I think that Ryan Gilliam is the guy we need to vote for, because I think Chief Hutch is there just so they can get collective bargaining. These guys are playing the long game, and that's to their credit. But I don't think collective bargaining is very good for Virginia Beach. In fact, as I said in my comments to council, even Franklin Delano Roosevelt said that collective bargaining was antithetical to our form of government.
Yeah, I mean, I very much support Hutch. I like Ryan. I've met Ryan a few times. Ideologically, I don't believe on the same page at all. I think he's a nice guy. I just not sure that he's somebody that is like up to run, like on council. I just don't know. like he's a nice enough guy, but again, when I look at his ideologies and especially, I mean, he's not pro labor, and so for me, that just does it right away. I strongly disagree with Jimmy that our city cannot afford collective bargaining. We absolutely can afford, if we can afford to give $1.5 million to festivals, we can absolutely support collective bargaining. And the money has already been shown how much money it's going to cost the city, and we absolutely can afford it. We can find the money for collective bargaining, and our teachers, our firefighters, all of our public safety, they deserve it. I'm also very opposed to the fact that Virginia Beach prides itself on having a majority volunteer EMS. I have a huge problem with that. We should be paying for our emergency management services. And I know we pay for some, but they pride themselves on using all volunteers. I do not. And so I'm not a fan.
I admit my impartiality will be in agreeing here that, yeah, I never thought that hyping the fact that it is all volunteer just sits well with the fact that we should be making employees of them. This is tough work. So because of that, they need as much support as they can. But again, stepping back a little bit, let's move on to the sheriff race. I want to do that one before the mayor race. How about Rocky Holcomb versus Aldo Peacemaker DiBlardino?
Oh my God. Can I go first?
Go.
Okay. All I need to say right now is Aldo is a sovereign citizen. Okay. Let me hold on. Aldo thinks he's a sovereign citizen. And that's all that should matter right there, y'all. Wackadoo. Like literally, that's like one little step away from being a flat earther. I literally want to meet him so I can ask him in person if he believes the earth is flat. So my vote, I've already voted. My vote was for Rocky. I 100% support Rocky, being sheriff, and that's that.
See, Melissa, I told you, you're coming over to our side.
Never.
I do like the analogy of the sovereign citizens, because one of my favorite pastimes is watching YouTube videos of the encounters between law enforcement and sovereign citizens, and the poor driver's window always gets smashed, and a guy gets hauled out of the car screaming, "I do not consent, I do not consent." That is entertainment. I think Rocky is a straight shooter. I think he's a good guy. I think Aldo is coming off just every bit as off center, for lack of a better term, as you described him. So I'm glad to see we agree on that.
I will admit I attended the the Sandbridge Civic League, and they had out a forum. He was there with Rocky, and they had their turn speaking. And what I didn't particularly like was when Aldo took the mic and went straight into Rocky's face with it without Rocky knowing it was coming, and made him ask a question about if he supports the Constitution. And I'm like, that's just odd behavior in a forum like that. So the race is the race. So maybe he'll do well or not. But I also know Rocky. He's a good dude. That's just the way I see it, at least on that matter. Now let's go to the mayor race, which does have quite a bit of candidates running, including John Moss, Sabrina Wooten, Bobby Dyer, Chris Taylor, and R.K. Kowalewicz. Let's have a good discussion on that one.
Go ahead, Jimmy.
Here's again, I've done work for Bobby and do work for Bobby. Historically speaking, the city of Virginia Beach has only been electing our mayor since 2008, and the only time I don't think we've turned out an incumbent, except for the first time when I think Will Sussman won. Other than that, the incumbent mayor has gotten 51% of the vote or better. So I'm kind of hard pressed to see that Bobby loses this race, although it could happen. There's a lot of worry that both RK and John Moss together are going to peel enough votes off of Bobby and give it to Sabrina Wooten. It's entirely possible, but I don't see it happening.
So yeah, I mean, I certainly hope that, obviously I'm behind Sabrina Wooten. Um, I don't have to be 100% with every candidate or elected official. I just need to be at a decent place. I'm like 75% with Sabrina when it comes to values, beliefs, ideologies. You know, and I have actual things that I can say that the things that I support, like the Independent Citizen Review Board, the 10-1 district system, as a small business owner, SWAM and her Business Ignite series and what she does with small business owners in the city. I think that Sabrina, I think that she understands a path of how she wants to move Virginia Beach forward. I think that Bobby Dyer, we have a couple candidates that are MAGA. They're MAGA candidates, and Bobby Dyer is one of them. I think that Bobby Dyer is a dun-dun-dun. Like he just and I just he does not, he speaks a specific game to people, but I think at the end of the day, when you look at his actions, I could never support him for mayor. Chris Taylor, I really like pragmatic elected officials. I think that Chris is very pragmatic. I think that Chris, I like how prepared Chris is. I like how he's not afraid to say what he means. But I don't. There's an arrogance about Chris that I just am not a fan of. And I have heard that amongst, both parties in the community, because that does come across and exude from him. And I don't know if that's just immaturity, or not, but it's a shame because I see some things in Chris that I like as a leader. And then RK, I don't even want to address RK. Moss is another one that actually, if we were in ranked choice voting, like I'm a huge fan of ranked choice voting, right? So if we were like ranked choice voting, how I would rank would be, I would rank Sabrina, I would rank Chris Taylor second, I would rank, believe it or not, John Moss third, and then I would rank Bobby Dyer, and then RK at the bottom. Okay, so if we're talking about ranked choice voting, right? This is right. And so many people get surprised. I mean, if I have to, if I've got to do it, I'm going to rank them that way. The thing with John Moss, and I've always told John Moss, is that even though I don't agree with him on like mostly everything, with exception of I think like maybe 2 things we've ever agreed on, I can have a dialogue with him. And I think that he thinks that he's the smartest person in the room, which is always a fun challenge for me. And I also think that he likes to hear himself talk, which is like typically most men. So I can deal with that too. And don't. And so I can deal with that with John, because at least he comes in with facts and information, and we can dispute how we feel about executing it. Right. So Moss, I don't think I agree. I think that RK Moss is going to peel votes away from Bobby. I think Chris Taylor will peel votes from Bobby, but Chris Taylor will also peel votes from Sabrina. But I actually think Sabrina is going to end up pulling it out because of the split. And I just would like to say that Bobby Dyer has raised $340,000 compared to Sabrina's 65. He's raised 5 times the amount. I wonder how he's going to feel when he loses.
If I could, go ahead, Jimmy.
We'll find that out on election night. But again, talking about, he keeps talking just because he's a man. Melissa, really, I mean, is there any call for that? I mean, first you called Stacey Cummings names. Now you're encouraging
that he's a blowhard
for talking too much when you took twice as much time as I did.
Yeah. Maybe. So what's your point?
Well, to those who get it, no explanation is necessary. To those who don't, no explanation is possible.
Right. I think I've heard you say that before. Now, I've been following VB politics pretty hard since about 2017, 18. And so I've gotten to know all of those individuals. And there's a certain seriousness with both Taylor and Sabrina, Moss, and Dyer because they've all been on council, at least in some fashion. So that is where I think the main crux of that race is going to be from, is the fact that this actually is one of the remaining at-large races in the city, and everyone would know about it. So I think, I don't know if anyone could approach 40 in terms of overall percentage. If they do, I'm feeling that I would be surprised on that matter. I might pull for Sabrina myself because of the collective bargaining vote in districts, but it's going to be tough. It's just the fact that you have Moss up there as well, Taylor up there as well, current known names. It's really going to be a big fight. So I don't think any other race has that type of firepower.
Well, that too. And I mean, this is a very, very contentious presidential year. And that's going to pull out a lot of votes that we normally don't see in the off-year elections. So anything, quite literally anything, is possible. And I don't know if, however it turns out, I don't know if I could be surprised.
I also want to point out that partially because Melissa pointed it out, over $350,000 raised for a seat that is what, 30, 31,000 in terms of paying per year. That's like raising as much money for 10 years of service to do it. And then you see that in Berlucci's race, he's raised over 200,000. Rosemary's over 200,000. Stacey's over 200,000. And I'm not seeing that type of money raised for the local Democrats.
No, and honestly, because historically there's a pattern of trying to buy the seats, right? And really that's how I look at it, is essentially buying those seats.
All right. Any last follow-up, Mr. Jimmy, on that before we move on to the next one?
Well, I mean, that goes all the way up. The problem is that the races that I think do matter, school board and city council, they don't have as much of buy-in as do your city council races on the higher end, or the state races, or even the gubernatorial races, or in this case the presidential races, where I think Kamala Harris has outraised Donald Trump, as if that could happen. But again, there is a lot of money in politics, and you got to remember that everybody goes into donate politics because they want something back. And I don't know if they're going to change the law to prohibit candidates from spending their money on whatever they want to spend it on, or they have to give it to charity or whatever. But I do think that maybe there is something to limiting the amount of money that you can give to a campaign, but they always find a way around it through PACs.
And that could be a whole nother debate just about the role of PACs in this. And we see that in all the races, from national to state to local. And of course, we're going to move on to the national section of the Virginia Beach ballot, which will begin with the congressional race, which is between incumbent Jen Higgins, Republican, and Missy Cotter Smallsall, the challenging Democrat. Let's go for that race. And Robert Reed, who is an independent in the race too.
Melissa, after you.
Well, obviously, I am going to be. Well, I already did do it for Missy Cotter Smallsall. Virginia is the very last state of the southern states to actually be protecting women's reproductive rights. And so we have a lot of women that are traveling to the state of Virginia to have these healthcare services performed. And so I want to make sure that my daughter and my friends' reproductive rights are preserved. So for me, it's and it really bothers me that Jen Higgins is actually in the healthcare field. I know she works with geriatric patients, but so I guess she doesn't necessarily care about reproductive rights, but I just think it's a real shame that Jen Higgins is in healthcare and does not recognize that women need to be protected and have to have this at they need to have their reproductive rights.
Mr. Jimmy pops back on. This is another race where money is interesting, to say the least. I think Jen is vastly outraising Missy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think Missy ran for state senate.
She did.
And then she ran now she's running for Congress. I don't know, is this her first or her second run for Congress? I think it's her first.
First, yeah.
Yeah. The thing about, Jen Kiggins is she's a military officer, and that's going to earn my respect all the time, as is Missy. I'm not going to discount her service. But I think the fundamental difference does come down to the fact that, Jen's views align more with mine than as does Missy. You talked about reproductive rights. That's a matter the Supreme Court has kicked back down to the states. As I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg even said that the Roe versus Wade decision was on shaky legal ground and was ripe to be overturned. And she called that right. I do think that that Jen Kiggins has been a good representative, and I think she's been bipartisan when she didn't have to be, and I think she needs to keep her seat.
Why did Jen Kiggins vote against pretty much everything that would help Virginians and people in the country, like the Price Gouging Act? I mean, the border bill. Like, why? Where is the accountability there for Republicans?
Well, I mean, you want to talk about that. Why did she vote against the border bill? Why did Joe Biden open the damn border, Melissa? I mean, come on. Not 2 miles from where we're sitting.
It's not open.
2 teenage girls were killed in a traffic accident by an illegal alien that should not have been here. Okay? You pick up the paper, you can read story after story of people being robbed, beaten, killed, and all other manner of horrible things by people who should not be in the country. Okay. Unfortunately, the Republicans and the Democrats are going to have to give some ground on this issue. And we got to do something about this porous border that Joe Biden has caused. Period. End of discussion. You cannot have a population of millions and millions of people coming into our country all of a sudden and all at once. It's not going to work. It never has worked, and it's going to end badly.
So undocumented people, they're not, no one is illegal. Undocumented migrants are 50% less likely to be, to commit a crime than native-born U.S. people. The fear-mongering that is happening and the xenophobia that is happening in the Republican Party over immigration is abhorrent. And I think we can all agree that James Lankford is a very conservative congressman. He said it was the most comprehensive border bill that we had ever put forth. Democrats were not very supportive of it, but it was the best it was going to get. And they voted against it.
And still, you have the migrants who are literally overwhelming our social safety net. Look at New York. Look at Chicago.
That's misinformation.
That's misinformation? Well, gee, I wonder, have you been to New York? Have you been to Chicago?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I was just in Chicago in August, actually.
How are they getting supported? Where's the money coming from that they're getting?
Do you
spent on services? It's coming from the federal government. You cannot have South America come all the way up to North America. It's not going to work.
Do you understand that immigrants
remaining in Mexico worked, and then Biden opened the border.
No, Biden. No. The Supreme Court said Title 42. The Supreme Court said Title 42 was unconstitutional because we were no longer at a pandemic. So that was the Supreme Court. And Joe Biden didn't open the border, Jimmy. And what when you are talking, you do realize that ITINs, right? A tax identification number that migrants pay billions of dollars in federal taxes and will never get to exercise the benefits to which they are paying into the system. And in the next 10 years, it's going to be $1.2 trillion in the next 10 years that immigration or immigrants will be bringing in tax revenue to this country. It is fear mongering. And have you been outside of the city of Virginia Beach?
Listen, I was a long haul trucker for 20 years. Okay. I actually came across 8 illegal immigrants. And yes, they are illegal immigrants because
They're
they're
undocumented
without somebody's permission to be here, that stumbled into a rest area on Interstate 8. Look, the problem with illegal immigration is that it is a hotbed for drugs. It is a hotbed for human trafficking. And if you're supporting Biden's programs, then guess what? You're supporting human trafficking. That's what a lot of these people are coming up here having happened to them. Why can't you people seem to understand that we need a safe, legal process for people who want to come into the country? And if you've got a criminal record, as some of these people do, need I point to Boulder, Colorado, then where these people from, I think,
misinformation. That's not true. That's Aurora, Colorado. Had the freaking police department said that the Venezuelan gangs, like the Russian propaganda that you have been indoctrinated with, is really wrong, Jimmy. And let me tell you something about drug offenses. A Texas Jimmy, don't interrupt me, Jimmy. A Texas study has done a lot of statistics over a 7-year period. Drug offenses for immigrants was stayed steady versus a 30% increase to native-born United States citizens. So it's not the immigrants. The immigrants are less likely to commit crimes because they do not want to be deported. What you're talking about is false. Do you know the majority of drug trafficking coming over the border is coming through shipping containers, but also the white people, American citizens going down to Central America and bringing back, and parts of North America, in Mexico, and bringing.
Where's your evidence? Where's your evidence of that?
There's plenty of evidence on that. Go to DOJ, go to the Department of Homeland Security. There's plenty of evidence for this.
And you're telling me that millions of people coming into this country, all within the past 4 years, is economically sustainable? Melissa,
first of all, Obama deported more people than Trump did. Again,
please don't interrupt me as I try not to interrupt you. But what color is the sky on your planet? How can this be good for anyone?
In the next 10 to 20 years, we're not even going to be having this conversation because we are going to be so desperate for workers that we're not even going to be having this conversation. I hope to God after this election, we can stop having this very disgusting racist, xenophobic conversation about immigration, because that's really what this comes down to. This is fear mongering on immigration. You had a very good border bill that was presented, that was supported by a very conservative Republican. Many Republicans and many Democrats worked on that border bill. And because your orange Cheeto master said, you can't do that, you can't give Joe Biden a win, then the Republicans like Jen Kiggins fell right in line and said no.
Well,
and so the immigration problem is your own problem.
And he did open the border. All the facts point to it. After Joe Biden took office, illegal immigration went through the roof. And I'm sorry if that term offends
people. It is not against the law to come into the States and seek asylum, Jimmy.
So when somebody comes into your house, they're not a criminal. They're not breaking in. No, you lock your door because you want to keep people out. Okay. And you don't let them in if you don't know them. That's crazy. And we have to have
imaginary borders.
Melissa, you got to stop cutting me off, hon. You
imaginary
really do.
Borders.
Because it is patently rude. The fact is, we don't have the security and the border that we currently need. Okay.
Yes, and there was a border bill to solve that.
And the Democrats had.
And the Republicans said no.
The Democrats in the Congress had Congress and the White House for 2 years. They had it for 4 years under Obama. What happened then?
8 years under Obama.
8 years, excuse me. My mistake. So why isn't it changing? Look,
Well, because Republicans, if you
really
remember, were like, we're not going to pass shit when Obama is, because we don't want to give him any wins. And he fought them tooth and nail, right?
well, wait a minute. You said the same thing about Orange Man and Biden. Make up your mind. Which is it? Look,
What
the
are you
problem
talking
is
about?
I had guys
Don't
who
straw
didn't
man
speak
me.
a lick of English just put a roof on my house. Okay. I agree with you that a lot of these people
What
will
did you
work
say?
Americans into the ground. I've seen them do it. I've seen them come in every day, and these guys work really hard. I don't have a problem with them. If they want a part of the American dream, they're welcome to it. The problem I have is when you have criminal elements coming across the border and causing harm to American citizens like you and me.
Jimmy,
That's what I have a problem with.
they're not doing that. You're this is fear mongering. You've either fallen for it or you're contributing to it. And do you know everybody in the state of Tennessee?
Well, there's only about 4 families there, but no.
Okay. Do we have any border checkpoints between Tennessee and Virginia?
No, they don't need them. They're being flown in. Look.
Okay. So
Melissa,
do you know everybody in Tennessee? So everybody coming to
do you know
Virginia.
everybody in Texas? Do you know everybody in Louisiana? What's
Right.
your point?
I'm not the one complaining about people crossing borders. You are. And you're the one talking about people being criminals. Plenty of criminals cross our border into Virginia every day from other states around us. And we aren't even a border state. How do immigrants actually affect you, Jimmy? Are they taking your job at Lowe's?
How do they affect me? I don't know. When you're looking at the wreckage of 2 smashed cars and 2 teenage girls who had their lives stolen from them, yeah, that really affects me. Maybe it
anybody.
doesn't
That
bother
could have
you,
been
and
anybody.
I'm sorry for that. But you know what? That guy should have not been here, and had the border patrol caught him and sent him back, we wouldn't
It
be
doesn't
having.
work like that, Jimmy. Border Patrol just doesn't catch and release. Like, they don't just deport them back.
Oh my God!
They get to go through a process.
Take a breath.
That's what they've been doing.
Let's take a minute, or not a minute. Let's take a second. Breathe a little bit. Resettle ourselves. And how about this? Reed's input in this race for Missy and Jen. Is it going to have any type of influence? Because I did hear Higgins once worrying that Democrats fronted him in order to take away from Jen's campaign. Or is this a true independent candidate?
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Yes. Reed, who is in this race as well, is an independent.
Oh, I didn't even realize there was somebody else in the race.
There is.
I didn't need.
I think the last race about 2 years ago, the difference between Elaine and Jen was only about a little less than 11,000 votes. And I think that there was a third party independent person running in that race too, who themselves only got about 10,000. Going into this race, should either one of the two candidates really fear someone who is named Robert E. Reed Jr., especially if you didn't know that he was there?
When you said Reed, I thought you might have meant Reed Greenman, but I knew that wasn't possible. His wife would never let him. Great guys. No, I don't know. I got to tell you something. When I ran for chairman back in 2020, I knew I wasn't going to win. Okay. They would never allow it. But I will tell you this, that sometimes you run because there are things that you want to say and things that need to be said, things that the major candidates don't want to talk about. And I think it's important that, people who do get to run have the opportunity to say what they think is important and throw it out there for the community to consider.
I don't think that he's some kind of plant. I mean, he's not a plant. Democrats have a difficult enough time recruiting candidates. Republicans will recruit a candidate if they got a poll, right? So I don't buy into him being a plant for the Democrats to peel away votes from Higgins. I would just say look at his platform and see what his platform is. But I think he'll, for people who don't want to vote for a woman, because there are people that don't want to vote for a woman, right? He will, whether that's party or whatever, he will peel off those votes. Possibly. I don't know, but I've never even heard of the guy. So I feel pretty strongly that most voters, even if they're not like involved in politics or they're really knowledgeable in politics, they can clearly see um because of YouTube ads. I mean, you literally can't go anywhere without a text message about candidates, a YouTube ad about candidates, a TV commercial. You can't be on Netflix if you got the commercials on the Netflix. Like they're just everywhere. So I feel pretty strongly that he may pull some votes, but very few.
Yeah, and this is not something that you would see in the next race too, which is between incumbent Tim Kaine and Hung Chau. There is not a third-party candidate or independent in that race. What are your thoughts on that race?
I think Tim Kaine probably wins by 20 points.
I agree with Jimmy.
Is that roughly the same one that we saw Corey Stewart when he was running for Senate and governor? Is that much of a difference?
Historically speaking, any path to the U.S. Senate for the state of Virginia, anyway, goes through the governor's mansion, and I don't see that changing. I think Hung Chau got started late. I think most of his synergy came from Northern Virginia. We haven't seen a whole lot of Hung Chau in Hampton Roads. I think that Tim Kaine has been a fixture around Virginia, and I just don't see him losing that race. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am.
Yeah, I think Hung Chau's a lunatic, and I don't really have anything else to say about him. And Tim Kaine's definitely going to win.
All right, then that leads us to the big top of the ticket thing, the one everyone's really going to go out to, really want to sink their teeth into come election day. And that's for president. We have Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, Jill Stein and Rudolph Ware, Chase Oliver and Mike Termat, Claudia De La Cruz and Karina Garcia, Cornel West and Melina Abdullah. How about the presidential race?
I think Cornel West wins it in a walk. I'm kidding.
Good one.
Of course, I'm supporting Trump. How it's going to turn out, I have no idea. I can tell you now that back in, I think it was 1984, we were in a situation similar to where we were now. You have a poll showing Ronald Reagan and Walter Mondale neck and neck, and it was a nail biter. It's going down to the finish. And then Reagan came out and beat the living crap out of Mondale. Mondale only got 3 electoral votes, 3 of them, which is only 3 more than I got, and I didn't even run. So I'm going to be very interested to see the day after, and I'm hoping for a repeat of 2016 when Trump pulled it out when everybody said he wouldn't, and the left just lost their bloody mind. It was so much fun to watch.
Jump in, Miss Melissa.
I mean, there's really not much to say about the MAGA sickness, other than I could never fathom casting my vote for a man for president that is a rapist and a convicted felon. I mean, he can't even vote, like in his own. I mean, he could, I guess, maybe in his state if they restore restoration of rights after, he serves his time eventually. But I just never thought I would see the day where we're looking at a rapist and a convicted felon for the president of the United States, and that people will actually vote for him. Kamala Harris, we are expecting, I'm hoping for a landslide. I am absolutely, based on record turnout, I am absolutely anticipating Trump losing. And I'm going to be very, very thankful when we can say, Madam President.
Are there any latent thoughts to be had on third parties and the possibility of spoilers, as much as I personally don't like the phrase spoiler. Is there anything to actually be concerned about?
No, not in this race.
No, not in the race either.
I would like to see a return to leaders like Theodore Roosevelt. I really would, because Roosevelt was a man who was actually more progressive than the times he lived in. And I think that, of course, when he ran, he basically split the vote and gave it to Woodrow Wilson. But I'm really, really having some doubts as to, look, both national candidates have luggage. You have Trump and all the things that's happened to him, and then you have Kamala Harris, who basically covered up the fact that Joe Biden was in cognitive decline for the past 4 years.
That's not true.
Well, we saw it at the debate. Okay, we saw what happened to Biden. The man crashed and burned. I have worked with the elderly for years. I can tell you what the signs of cognitive decline are, and he's got them.
And you're voting for Trump?
Yeah, I'm voting for Trump. I'm choosing the felon in the hillbilly.
Have you seen the cognitive decline with Trump?
Well, Melissa, I gotta say he's really doing a number to scare your side, because
Arnold Palmer's dick? Mr. Arnold Palmer's dick. He's talking about the size of Arnold Palmer's dick. He's talking about being on a electric boat, and does he decide to get eaten by sharks by jumping off the electric boat because he'll get electrocuted? Like, what planet are we living on that you can't see that Trump is an old man, and that really this is just wealthy billionaires' ploy to get JD Vance in as president? Don't understand.
Well, he may have the chance if the people on your side got any better with their marksmanship. I'm just saying, because it's really clear of the side who's afraid, and it ain't us.
It was like a little Republican boy that attempted to shoot him on that rooftop. And also, why didn't he disclose his medical records and why did his ear look totally normal before he started wearing that little diaper maxi pad on his ear? And then all of his Trump supporters started wearing their little maxi pads on their ear in support. Like, it's a fucking cult. What is happening?
Well, what can I say? The Secret Service counter snipers did their job. And it's really, like I said, Trump's been shot at about twice, I think, or the first time the Secret Service got to him first. And this is not the first time that, I know you guys love to talk about January 6th, but political violence has really been the exclusive purview of the left. And this is going all the way back to Gabriel Precept. He shot Archbishop Franz Ferdinand. You have the 1923 bombing of the Attorney General's house. Those were leftist. You have
Black Wall Street, where the conservatives burnt down Tulsa, Oklahoma. Black Wall Street. What are you even talking about right now? We had
actually, that was when the Democrats were running things in the South. That was your party, not mine.
No,
sir.
You understand that I know you're smart enough to know about the party switch, and Southern Democrats were actually conservatives. Period. Slave owners were conservatives. Period. And it was before the party.
Now you're voting for them.
And the Republican Party was the party that they were progressives, and the Democrats were the conservatives. And then there was a party switch. I know I don't need to educate you on this, because I do think you're a little bit smarter. You're still voting for Trump, which leads me to question, but that's a tired talking point. Like, oh, the Democrats are the racists. I'm sorry. The Ku Klux Klan endorses Donald Trump. I don't need to say anything else.
Does the Ku Klux Klan even exist anymore, except in your
imagination? They absolutely do. And about a third of this country are direct descendants of Klans members, because there were 4 to 8 million of them in the 1920s in this country. So this country was built on white supremacy.
Melissa, again, to those who get it, no explanation is necessary. To those who don't, no explanation is possible.
That's what people say when they don't have anything to say, because I'm right.
Excuse me. I really don't like it when you keep interrupting, because I'm trying
I don't care.
Of course you don't. And that's why I don't think that your positions are really something anyone should listen to. You're a very angry woman.
Because I'm true? Because I'm telling you, oh, I'm a nasty woman, am I?
But you're very angry. So
yes, I'm angry because of people like Mongo.
I think Harris is going to get beat the same way Mondale did. And all we can do is hope.
She would have to lose Virginia first.
Virginia's always been the tip of the spear. It's going to be an interesting race. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to fall out, but I don't think I'm going to have any meltdowns or temper tantrums like the Democrats did in 2016 when the guy who wasn't going to win actually pulled it out.
And you're the one that voted January 6th.
They're so sensitive, these people.
Here's what I want to do. We have reached the end of what the ballot is for Virginia Beach. And I think the last section was the one people really wanted to hear about because we all know how great you guys are about local politics, how knowledgeable you are, how sincere you are, and the things you support for. But before we go, what I want to do two things. First, I want each of you, if you can, to find the best compliment you can do to pay the other. So
wait, I'm sorry, what was that?
The best compliment you might be able to provide for your opponent tonight. Might be tough, but I think it's a worthy challenge.
The best compliment we can pay our opponent.
Hey, we didn't do at large. We didn't do school board at large.
I completely forgot about that. Sharon Felton and I'm blanking on the name. Auntie Ashley.
That's great.
Let's film that in.
Sharon Felton all the way. Get her back on the school board. They're doing that whole like military ride thing with Monty Ashliman because he was in the military, blah, 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 blah. And that means he has experience and all the things. But Sharon Felton all the way.
Monty Ashliman is a former naval officer. He is a Super Hornet pilot. He is a graduate and instructor at the Navy's Elite Fighter Weapons School. The man is qualified to teach mathematics, algebra, trigonometry, geometry. He was also a base commander at an NAS out in the West Coast, similar to Oceana. And the one thing about being a base commander is you don't have to be a pilot. You don't have to be a plumber. You don't have to be a street engineer, but you have to manage all these things. And I think that's something that we need on city council, somebody who can manage a large operation. And Virginia Beach Public Schools is one huge operation, that's for sure. When you stop and think about the scope of the public schools, every day our bus drivers pick up and deliver home about the same amount of individuals that landed on the shores of Normandy on D-Day. That is a monumental undertaking. And I think Monty Ashliman has the wherewithal and has the skill set to manage that really well. And I think he can bring valuable insights, not only to public education, but how it interfaces with our military community.
Great. At least I learned more about Monty. I already know Sharon personally. So if I was still in Virginia Beach, I admit I probably would vote for Sharon. But I'm glad, Melissa, that you mentioned that because I didn't want to leave that one to not being mentioned at all. So again, thank you, Melissa, for bringing that up. But again, back to the challenge. I want to see what you guys can say. Did you like about the other compliment-wise?
Well, I do like the paint job on that CJ7 sitting in your driveway. That's a sharp-looking truck. I like that. And I do have to ask you, I know you had a 4x8 for a mayoral candidate in your yard. Did the city make you get a smaller one?
Matter of fact, they sure did, Jimmy. I mean, it took the Republicans quite a long time to call and report me, but I made sure within 3 days, I had my 5 days that I had to remedy it, and I made sure to remedy that to put up a 4x4 in my front yard. Yes.
Yeah. And I'm sorry about your signs getting stolen. I had my Trump sign stolen, and my property defaced, and our street had spray paint, and it was just a mess.
When did I mention? Hold on. When did I mention my signs were stolen?
I didn't say your signs were stolen. Didn't you have one of your what is it? White supremacy is racism signs taken? I thought you mentioned that
How
on
did
Facebook.
you know that?
Because you put it on Facebook.
Did I?
Yeah, you did.
We're not friends on Facebook.
We're not, but you don't have your privacy set high enough.
Sure.
I did my own research. Okay, I'm not a fool.
Are you sure you weren't the one who stole my white supremacy as terrorism sign, Jimmy?
I don't steal signs. I don't play that
Well,
game.
now it's conveniently placed in front of my Ring doorbell camera, which is why all of my political signs are right in front. Hold on, are right in front, so that I make sure that I capture the thief when they come into my yard and trespass on my property and steal signs. So yeah.
No, I don't steal signs just because I'm not fast enough. And I think it's a waste of time anyway. Signs don't vote.
I agree with you. Signs don't vote.
But I do think it's important that we respect each other, and I do think it's important that even though we're of different political persuasions, that you have the right to your opinion, and it is my job to respect that, as I would hope you respect mine. You're not the raving, foaming at the mouth lefty liberal that most people would, paint the other side to be. I think that there's a lot of times when a lot could be done if we sat down and talked to one another. But that gets lost because I think you might agree with me that the media does tend to blow it up. Remember, in the news media, if it bleeds, it leads, and controversy wins the day. It doesn't matter who's right. It doesn't matter who's wrong, just as long as somebody's fighting and it puts eyes on that TV. That's what it's about. I think you're a very passionate woman. I think you're misled on many, many things. But I will never take away from your passion to make the country a better place.
So it's interesting. I think to say that you think I'm a passionate woman, but I'm misled would make an assumption that I'm uninformed. And it's actually the quite opposite of that. I'm very informed, and which is why I'm very passionate. And thank you for recognizing my passion. I'm just a angry white woman out here, as one of my friends so eloquently pointed out, that it took you an hour and a half to get me on that. I'm an angry woman. I'm a nasty woman. Anyways, yeah, so there's that. But I do believe in civil discourse, but I do believe there's a lot of hidden racism and sexism and misogyny and bigotry in civility. So therefore, where I don't agree with you is that I don't have to respect your opinions. I don't. I know people like to say that, like, we're the party of, the tolerance. Like, I'm not tolerant. I'm not tolerant of bigots. I'm not tolerant of racists. I'm not tolerant of those things. And so you're not going to get civility from me when we're talking about people. But I can have those discussions, right? And I think it is important, Jimmy, like, you and I do see you at Lowe's when I, not that long ago, you and I almost ran into each other when I was coming around the corner. And so.
Scared the hell out of me.
Huh?
Scared the hell out of me. I didn't know where you came from.
Bet it did. I bet it did. An angry white woman like me coming around the corner, you never know what you're going to get. So I definitely believe that having dialogue is important. I just find it very, very difficult with people who are MAGA. And so not all the time. I can have those conversations, but you're not going to get the civility from me when we're talking about people. And so we can talk about policy, right? And I can have a civil conversation about policy. And I love talking about policy. I make jokes that, like, nothing gets me more, aside from my husband, nothing gets me more excited than talking to Republicans about actual policy. It's exhilarating for me. Because generally Republicans can't talk a lot about policy because they're really not familiar with policy. So anyways, it's been great. I appreciate your civility, Jimmy.
And what I appreciate is having both of you on tonight to go over this full ballot from the school board to president in Virginia Beach. It means a lot to me because I know you guys both. I know how serious you are. I know how smart you both are. I know how passionate both of you are regarding local politics. And that was my vision, was to sort of bridge the two together, just to talk about it in such a way that we mostly felt comfortable. And I enjoyed the show. And again, I thank you guys for coming on tonight. And I do hope that you have a great rest of your evening. If you'd like, you can just take a parting shot, not a shot, but just a comment about your thoughts going into the election.
Can we have another debate with Jimmy after the election?
If he wants to.
I'm cock, locked, and ready to rock, because let's do it. But no, Conrad, thank you for hosting the show. Thank you for reaching out. I enjoyed it. I always enjoy a lively debate, even when the other side is not in agreement with me. But we did find some common ground, which I think is a good thing. I do think that a lot of people need to ramp it down some. I do think that people tend to look at this as an all or nothing proposition. When I worked at, well, thank you, Nick. I appreciate that. I do think that I worked at a place several years ago when, Romney lost the election. Everybody came to work, thought, oh my God, he's going to be mad. He's going to be mad. Romney lost. And it's like, well, no. The election happened. The people spoke. My life was pretty much unchanged. And I think people need to stop focusing so much on the presidential race and focus on the low down ticket races, because that's where the government is that is closest to your life. Look at your city council, look at your school board, look at your sheriff, because they have more impact over what you do and what you can't do day to day than anybody up ticket.
Listen, there's something else Jimmy and I agree on. Holy smoke. I'm gonna piggyback on Jimmy on that. I have been screaming this from the rooftops, that I think that we have kind of like our food pyramid, our political pyramid is also the wrong way. I believe that local should be the most important, because it's the fastest it's the fastest point for constituents to get something actually accomplished in their city, in their town, where they can see actual results right away, or maybe not right away, but soon. Sometimes, I mean, sometimes it is. I make a phone call to my councilman and I'm like, hey, and then boom, a day later, they've called and said, hey, I've resolved this, right? And so local seats are the seed seats for state and federal government. When I talk about local politicians and I bring up issues that are important to me, that are actual legislature issues, state and federal, people kind of shit on me for that sometimes because they say it's not relevant. And I'm like, it actually is relevant, because these are the people that they're using these positions as your councilman and your school board to go to the next level. I mean, you can see that pattern so many times just in our own city. Okay. So also this nonpartisan stuff with local races, like, I'm sorry, but if you've ever talked to me about partisan, nonpartisan, I'm going to say nonpartisan doesn't exist if you vote. And we know that everybody that participates in elections right now or politics right now is voting. Okay. And they're voting. Now, I'm not saying that I voted for a Republican. I voted for Rocky. I actually voted for more than one Republican, because there are some Democrats on the ticket, okay, that I deem them more like Republican lights. Okay. But I would still vote for them if they're the right person for the ticket. And so local races matter. And that is 100% the truth. When you're talking about presidential, you're talking about the policies that even get passed, even from the second a president starts getting in. You're not seeing the results of that until 24 months after that bill has been signed, or, it is not immediate. So get behind the locals, tell your friends and family to get behind the locals, and make sure you know who you're voting for, and make sure you know who is representing you.
I muted myself.
Did you mute yourself, buddy?
I did mute myself, yes. Again, I want to thank you guys for really having fun with this. You treated it seriously. I had a lot of comments tonight, a lot of views tonight. Thanks in large part to you guys, because I think they all wanted to see specifically you two go over it. So
I hope
again,
we didn't disappoint.
no, I think this is probably clearly my biggest show to date as I watch these views live. It's a really good show, and I thank Jimmy for that. I thank Melissa for that. You guys didn't have to be here, but you did, because we all like the same thing, and that's politics right here in the 757, Teresa, the 757. So again, I thank you guys. I hope you guys have a great night. I'll be in touch.
Thank you for hosting, Conrad. I really
That'll
appreciate
be
it.
the next show, Jimmy. That'll be
Thanks,
the next
Jimmy.
show.
Bye, Jimmy.
Good night.
All right. Thank you, viewers. Really means a lot. This has been the most watched SchezzWho, clearly, as I'm watching it go live. Thank you for commenting. I have so many comments. I want you guys to share it with people in Virginia Beach, because this is a Virginia Beach ballot-based show. Share with people you know before they go. Make sure that they like it too. Make sure that they would like to subscribe to this channel too, because this is stuff that could be brought to all the other cities in Hampton Roads, as long as you tune in, as long as you follow, you like, you comment, and you subscribe, because SchezzWho is going to be growing, and it's all going to be growing because of you. And you, I hope you have